Doesn't matter.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking, like, when we decided to do a podcast is that, like, for me anyway, like, I have a face for radio, so this is, like, perfect.
I still want to maybe someday put this on YouTube, so you're going to have to go against your wishes there.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I watch nowadays is YouTube, so.
All right, so welcome to Conversation on Tap, a new podcast that seeks to promote intelligent dialogue in an age of echo chambers and self-segregation. Join us each week over some beer if you feel caught in the middle of a political tug-of-war. My name is Jose.
I'm Joel.
And I figure since we're just starting this podcast out, we should introduce ourselves briefly. So, Joel.
So I am a 48-year-old teacher living in Santa Maria, California, the great working class, gritty Santa Maria, California. And I am, like Jose, an avid reader. And for years and years, I've read and read and read. And now maybe it's time to talk a little bit about what I've read. And, you know, and it'd be fun to talk to you about and assimilate all this stuff. Give back.
Give back. No, I totally agree. So I'm Jose. I am also a teacher. I work with Joel at a junior high school in Santa Maria. I'd also say that I've spent a lot of my time reading, studying history and politics. I'm also a person of faith, so I read a lot of things related to my Catholicism. And all of that to say that Joel and I have like the best conversations ever.
Yeah, we really do. So deep and so topical.
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with podcasts. I know, Joel, you're like getting into podcasts more and more now.
Yeah, I've been walking to school last month, and I listen to one every day, and man, they're fun. So it'll be super interesting to see if anyone listens to this one.
If anyone listens to our...
Yeah, we're going to be counting. We're going to be counting the listeners there.
Yeah, I feel like the little kid performing in the garage with their like little, blankets with patches all over it.
The puppet show, yes.
Puppet show, yeah.
For themselves.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And you did that too?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Awesome. All right.
So, hence the beginning of our decision to...
Let me see if you guys can hear that beer.
Oh, yeah.
Being poured. I gotta liquor up for this. This is pretty tough. And by the way,
loose lips.
I'm married with 3 kids. And do you think it's important to say that, or you can always edit that out?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah.
3 boys, college, high school, and 2 high school.
So I'm married too. I don't have any kids. I have a cat. But so if there's any ladies out there listening, I am taken. So
yeah, I've been taken for a long time, and I think that it helps us a lot with being sort of objective observers of the whole Metoo movement, which we're going to discuss later. I think it's a perfect topic to get into for our first podcast.
Yeah, because I don't want anyone talking or being disrespectful or sexually assaulting my wife. So
yeah.
I love women.
Yeah. The beer. We are drinking a beer today that I just found at Costco called Santa Maria Calavesa. You know what I love about this beer? It's a lager. And these last few decades, actually, ales have been just so, I guess not lagers have been sort of disrespected. And they're coming back. And I'm glad for that. And this is a really interesting tasting lager. And I love interesting and unexpected tastes. Like you get that peanut. That just tastes weird and funky. That's this beer. It's got a funky flavor, which I love. So, try it.
It's by Santa Maria Brewery, and I think you got this you purchased it at Costco.
Amazing, yeah.
Costco's selling local beers. That's awesome.
Cool. Love Costco.
Well, salud, sir.
Salud.
Nice. Let's drink up.
Do you think that doing alcohol is cool?
So the first segment of our show, we're calling Fred Talks, which the name comes from Joel's cousin by marriage, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It cracked me up when you said Fred Talks. Well, obviously, it's a take on TED Talks. But, I like that concept. So what did your cousin explain it?
Family reunion educational discussions. And we actually all got together in Cambria. I was calling it Cambria the whole time, but everybody kept on correcting me.
Cambria.
Yeah, Cambria. And he said, yeah, we got to have Fred Talks. And so this is kind of a funny story. I gave one of the first Fred talks. After my brother talked about Monterey Pines, I got up and talked about where the word Cambria came from, and was quickly corrected. I was actually wrong. I said that it was the ancient Latin word for Scotland, and it turned out to be the ancient Latin word for Wales. So I was trying to be truthful, but
That's like, that reminds me of Anchorman.
Discovered by the Germans in 1904, they named it San Diego, which of course in German means a whale's vagina.
I love that. Yeah. So anyway, the first segment of our show, we're in honor of that, we're calling Fred Talks. So I'm going to start the Fred Talks off this week by talking about an interesting news article I read. So this is the 45th anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision. And so pro-lifers are marching and they're rallying across the country, basically protesting the Roe versus Wade decision. And of course, I'm someone who's Christian, so I tend to agree with the protesters. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people who describe themselves as pro-life really aren't pro-life. Would you agree? Like they're more like pro-birth.
yeah, well, I don't want to steal your fire, but I don't understand how you can be pro-life and also be pro-death penalty. It doesn't seem to make sense. The sanctity of life, and well, you're playing God basically if you're putting somebody to death. And there absolutely have been innocent people put to death. So you are playing God, and it's just such hypocrisy to me.
Exactly, and because of that hypocrisy, in Little Rock, the Little Rock diocese, the bishop there, his name is Anthony Taylor, he decided not to attend the Little Rock March for Life
Man of conscience.
Yes, and so that's kind of created a little tizzy, I guess you'd call it. Is that the right word?
Yeah, that's
in Catholic circles, because he's the bishop, he should be going to this rally. But he's not going because the keynote speaker for this March for Life rally in Little Rock is the state attorney general, Leslie Rutledge, who apparently is a huge proponent of the death penalty. And so the bishop, not wanting to be hypocritical, said, I can't go, I can't participate if they're promoting this person who claims to be pro-life, but then they're not consistent.
Yeah, I like the guy already without even knowing him. I just think it's cool that he's living up to his principles.
So the other thing that was interesting was, like I said, it kind of created a rift. It's like, oh, this bishop's not going to this pro-life rally because of this person who's, supportive of the death penalty. Well, he's actually correct in that he's promoting what's called the consistent ethic of life, right? Being consistent with supporting and promoting life from womb to tomb, natural death. And that concept really started in the early 80s from a cardinal named Cardinal Joseph Bernardin, who's from Chicago. And some Catholics, conservatives mostly, poo-poo that. Because they say, well, no, abortion is, that's the most hideous, awful thing. All the other stuff, all the other social issues like housing, environment, all those other things, that's just liberal propaganda. We don't need to pay attention to that. But I think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just say we only care about life when it's in the womb.
Yeah.
And then once they're born, well, they're on their own. Who cares?
Yeah.
No, we have to, I think, promote life from beginning to end.
Yeah. I love that. In fact, I have a family member, I would never mention the name, of course, on a podcast, that voted for Trump because she or he was so against abortion, and she or he is like totally pro death penalty.
Wow.
And I think that there's a whole bunch of people that voted for Trump because he is supposedly, this is such a joke, supposedly against abortion.
Right.
I guess, was he before? Didn't he say in his previous life he was pro? Okay.
Yes.
That's crazy. That's just nuts. And I don't know. It just boggles my mind.
And that kind of brings me to my final point on this topic is that, so this bishop says, I'm not going to this rally because we have a speaker, a keynote speaker, who's super in favor of the death penalty. But then at another pro-life rally, I believe it was the March for Life in D.C., President Trump was the speaker. To me, all these pro-lifers who are there cheering on Trump as some kind of pro-life supporter, some kind of, I don't know, leader on the issue of life, I think is a total joke. And it shows the hypocrisy and the bankruptcy.
How do we get here? How do we get there? How do we get there?
It was the rise of the religious right, and they sublimated their faith, if you will, to their political ideology.
Yeah. You know what I want to totally emphasize, if we keep on doing this podcast, which I'm loving already, is this idea of a continuum of belief.
Right.
Instead of, what was the Star Wars quote? You're a total Star Wars lover. Where, was it Obi-Wan talking to Anakin about not being black and white? What was the quote? Gosh.
Yeah.
Hey, I put you on the spot. But
No, he said something like,
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
it was crazy, and that didn't come home to me till way later. And it's like so true. And here we're getting our philosophy. And why should we be surprised that we're getting it from Star Wars? Of course we are. But anyway, it's so true.
yeah, so that's the end of my topic, Joel. What do you want to talk about for your Fred Talk?
I want to talk about this idea that beer, microbrews especially, keep on making it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking that all these, I don't know if it's happening in your area, but in our area, all these microbrews keep on opening up. And I keep on thinking, oh, they can't make it because it's saturated already. There's no way another one. And they do fine.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from. And it's shocking and it's beautiful. I just read an article in the Atlantic today about, and we can we post to this, by the way?
Yeah.
Later? I'll find it and
I'll put it in the show notes, yeah.
about how beer is one of the great economic phenomena. Yeah, in our time. More people are being employed by breweries now than ever. We're drinking, actually, believe it or not, less beer, but we're drinking, if you think that Budweiser is crappy beer, which we both do.
Which it is.
and all these other Budweiser, poor Budweiser, they get the shaft, but all these other huge conglomerate beer corporations, we're drinking way, of course, less beer from them, and we oftentimes, by the way, drink beer from them that we think is microbrew beer, like Blue Moon, etc. That really isn't. But all these neighborhood breweries keep on popping up, and they keep on making it. And to me, it's glorious. I love it. And I'm trying to figure out, well, where is that coming from? What do you think?
We're drinking Santa Maria Brewery right now.
Yeah, and it's at Costco. It's crazy.
And they're selling it at Costco, but I think, I don't know if it's like this awareness, like your global footprint. You want to drink local beer,
Yep.
or if it's just like hip, like we're all hipsters and we love drinking our local microbrewery beer.
Yep.
I don't know what it is.
No, I think those are the two main ones. Want to stay local, want to promote things around you.
Right.
And friends, actually. And also, I mean, what were people thinking in the 80s when they were so limited in their choice? When they had like Coors and Budweiser to choose from? I don't think. It was all lagers with boring or light beer.
Right.
And why did that end? Why did all this variety end? And what, well, the article in the Atlantic actually brings to light why, we got back to it a little bit, the economics of it. But man, it's a glorious thing. I revel in it. I read an article once that back in Chicago, I think it was like the early 1900s, every neighborhood had its own brewery. Kid you not.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And everybody was totally, into that one beer and would go to the one bar. And I love that idea. And I think we're getting there, we're getting smaller. And it seemed like the people who brewed just for their neighborhood made it as a living. It's incredible. And I think we can get there. And just beer. I just love it.
I love it too. And so we went to Figueroa Mountain, like you were saying the other day, and I tried this beer called Scary Spice. It's a pumpkin flavored brew. It was so good.
Yes. What?
It was glorious.
And what was Fig Mountain better than I do. And what was the beer that I had second, the high alcohol beer that I love.
Oh, you had the Lizard's Mouth.
Yes,
That was
Mouth.
an IPA, I believe.
Yeah, amazing.
So good.
9 or 8%. And the pumpkin
It was 9.1.
higher. I wonder if it's based on Lizard's Mouth and it's got the flavoring added.
I don't know how they do it, but see, that's the thing is with these microbreweries, they can be creative.
Yeah.
They can afford to make smaller batches of
everything. Yeah.
Whereas, like, Budweiser, they turn out the same like in large volume,
Yeah.
But these guys, these microbrewers, they'll experiment with different flavors.
And it's cool because experimenting goes to the customer. That's the testing, and they get feedback, and then they change it. But again, the point is, microbrews are popping up everywhere. I know it's popping up across the country, not just in California, and they keep on making it. And they keep on. I mean, I just think, oh no, another one? They can't possibly do it, but yeah, they do.
They do.
It's amazing.
Congratulations, you 5 ladies no longer have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein.
So this is the part of our show where we are going to focus on the topic du jour. Well, I guess it's the topic of the week. I don't know. This week we're going to talk about the Metoo movement. It's stirred up quite the controversy since the whole Harvey Weinstein thing broke.
Man, it's fascinating. It's just to me, it's got me just glued to my screen. I read everything about it that I can, and I love discussing it. I love to see what it's doing to our culture. I think, and I want to hear your opinion, I think generally it's been really good.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that these women who are victims, really, of sexual assault, of rape, in the case of Harvey Weinstein, their careers have been on the line. I think it's amazing that we're celebrating, well, maybe celebrating isn't the right word, but that we're acknowledging that sexual assault is real, that it's actually happening. And it's an issue for men. We have to rethink, I don't know, I guess our privilege, our power.
It is. It's a power. It's all about power. And it is a privilege not to have to deal with all that crap that women go through. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny, at our work we have a bunch of females that just love banter, I guess is the word. Yeah. And we don't have to worry too much about it. But there are some situations, and we're teachers, so we are in a real, I think it's a real chivalrous environment. But I think there are some environments that are toxic.
Totally.
I mean, and I feel bad for the women that have to deal with it.
Well, for us, as teachers, it's a field that's predominantly women. Right.
No, that's huge.
And even though, superintendent and people who work in the district office tend to be men.
Yeah, I never thought that. We're like at the vanguard.
Yeah. But I think it's horrible that someone like Harvey Weinstein, for example, could just say to a woman, hey, you want to be famous? You gotta do this sexual favor for me.
Yeah.
He was disgusting. He would literally have meetings with women, like in his house or his hotel room, and he'd be walking around naked.
Crazy. Just crazy. I mean, and just the whole Matt Lauer being able to lock his office door is just nutty.
It's like a little sex dungeon at the Today Show.
Yeah, sex dungeon. Gotcha.
Well, so he had this desk. So Matt Lauer had this desk where, he could push a button, almost like a Bond villain. Yeah. Push a button and it would close the door and lock it and turn the blinds.
It's so true. It's a Bond villain. I read that a lot, and that's such an appropriate image, And we shouldn't be laughing about it, but
it's creepy.
Sorry, it's creepy. Sorry that we're laughing, but just that these guys were that lame. Mm-hmm. But that the females had to deal with it. Okay. So here's the next point for me, at least, is that done? I think that's done. That kind of shit is done.
I think so.
I mean, that of course not done 100%, but for the most part, what kind of guy is going to keep on doing that?
I don't know. I think any person now who thinks that they can use sex as a leverage over a woman, I think they're putting themselves in a situation where, like, whatever project they're working on is done.
Yeah. I mean, it just how quickly they get booted out the door is just refreshing. To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
So I will say this. Harvey Weinstein was the head, I guess with his brother, of this major film studio.
He was the power, no?
Yeah.
In Washington, maybe?
So I was looking at this Vanity Fair article about Harvey Weinstein and all of his shenanigans, and his company. They generated 81 Oscars since 1999.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, if people think that's all artistry, no, that's also power.
And you look at these other cases. You look at someone, so you have the Weinstein case. Matt Lauer. I mean, he was literally done.
Yep.
One day he was on the show.
Isn't
the next
it
day,
amazing?
done.
Charlie Rose.
Oh, that broke my heart.
That broke my heart. I loved him.
Yes.
My grandma got me into him, and she would watch him religiously, and we would talk about his shows, and I loved his ability to get deep, and man, that was sad when he went, but he deserved it.
He deserved it.
He deserved it.
And okay, let's talk about this. For us to sit here and say, that breaks our heart, poor Charlie Rose. What does that say about us? Like, we're focused on, like, damn it, we can't watch Charlie Rose anymore on
Good
PBS.
question.
What does that say about us?
It reminds me of something that, like, every time I watch a Woody Allen movie, and I love him.
I love Woody Allen.
I feel guilty, you know?
Right.
And it's the same thing. Can we love the art and hate the artist? Or
Even with, with Woody Allen, I have to say, people are gonna hate me. I don't buy the argument.
You mean with him marrying his adopted kid, or the other,
with the accusation
that he didn't
with his
molest his own?
whatever, yes.
I don't buy that at all.
No, but it's creepy that he went with Sydney.
What the hell are people thinking?
There's no evidence.
It's one of the classic, me against you, or
yes.
He said, she said.
He said, she said.
Oh man,
I don't buy it though.
I don't either. And what is the name? It's not Ronan. Who's Ronan's sister's?
That's her name's Dylan, I think.
Dylan. I'm believing her, and I don't think that the default is that. I guess the default is you'd never ever accuse somebody because you know what it does to people. Just out of the blue, people accuse people because they want to get back. But what did Dylan have to gain by that? That's why I believe her.
I think there have been issues with her testimony because I think her story has changed. They've had psychologists speak with her. The police have investigated this multiple times. And I'm sure they're probably looking into it now with all this hashtag #MeToo stuff.
Yeah.
And nothing's ever come of it.
But
so I guess the thing is, do we believe the victim regardless?
Right. No, I don't. I can't stand all this believing the victim automatically. I can't stand all this lack of due process.
That's my
and this total disregard of guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty. It just bugs me.
Right, because they're being tried in the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Where were we when we got into this sidetrack?
Okay, so we have all these people, all these powerful men.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just falling. Even like Louis C.K. I love Louis C.K. He's got the best comedy. It's horrible. I love it. But then we have other issues like Garrison Keillor.
To me, a national treasure.
Yes. Prairie Home Companion. I used to listen to that all the time.
Went to see him in San Luis about 7 years ago or so. He's a gem. And you know what? If you can know that a man's got a golden heart just from his show, which you can't, but you almost can, then he does have a golden heart. I do believe.
He does. So his show was so folksy, very idyllic, and I think that came from a place within himself.
Yeah, it totally did.
He's from Minnesota, right? Just this kind of like heartland, good old classic Americana.
Yeah. I mean, as a Lutheran, he used to, my parents, they know all the famous Lutherans.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was at the top of the list. Oh, my gosh, Garrison Keillor. He's a Lutheran, Love him. But I don't know.
Then he
was
got caught up in this hashtag Metoo movement.
Oh, caught up is the word. He just not just caught up, he got swept.
He got run over.
Run over right downstream. What was what are the facts in the Garrison Keillor case? Because you're much better at this than I am.
So poor Garrison Keillor, I'm not sure the circumstances, like where he was. It may have been after one of his shows, I don't know. But at any rate, this woman comes to him and she has this really sad story and she's crying and she's, unburdening herself to Garrison Keillor. Mind you, Garrison Keillor is someone who's pretty reluctant to touch people. He doesn't like being touched. He's kind of quirky like
He's Lutheran.
There you go. So this woman's crying and he puts his hand out to touch her back, just like to console her. Well, apparently his hand accidentally went up her blouse.
Now, just to give the gal her own say, did she say different, or did she not refute that?
No, she does not refute that whatsoever.
Okay.
So he accidentally touched her back. In the second there was skin-to-skin contact, he recoiled and apologized. And she said, no, don't worry about it. Well, he felt so guilty that later on, I guess a few days later, he emailed her and said, I'm so sorry that happened. I didn't mean anything. I apologize. I feel horrible that happened. And she responds, nah, don't worry about it. Wasn't a big deal. Don't worry about it. Well, along comes this hashtag MeToo movement, and she wants to jump on board. And suddenly, he's being accused of sexual assault. He lost his show. He lost Program Companion. All the people who carry that show dropped him like a bad habit.
I mean, it's all of our losses.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to ask the serious question, should it be? I mean, Is that enough? You know what else I want to bring up is because liberals and conservatives have different standards, it's the liberals who are going to get screwed in this whole thing.
Exactly.
And we're going to run over a bunch of great... Yeah, Al Franken's another one. Come on.
So to what you were saying, though, Republicans, conservatives, they nominated and then elected Trump to the presidency. All of these accusations of sexual assault, being a pervert behind the scenes at the, Miss Universe, or was it I don't even know what the hell it's called. Being a pervert behind the scenes.
Can you imagine any other president having an affair with a porn star?
And then this Stormy Daniels
nobody
issue?
even looks twice.
No.
It's shocking. Nobody's even talking about it.
Paid her $135,000 to not talk about it.
Oh, man.
The president has an extramarital affair with a porn star right after his wife gives birth to a son. Then he pays the porn star to shut up. Does it even matter to say his evangelical base?
To evangelicals, of course it matters. It's against everything that they stand for.
You'd think so, but no. They say he's just repented and they forgive him, and Mike Pence is like, this my dude. All right, what do you guys got?
I wrote Trump punches Pope. I think that would be really bad.
You'd think so, but a lot of people still hate Catholics.
We are living in interesting times.
And see, he does all this horrible stuff. There's all these people who came forward and accused him of sexual assault. There's rape. You have that dossier where apparently he was participating in golden showers. He's fine to be president. He hates abortion, so that's fine.
But the thing about it is that we don't have proof that he has this stuff, but nobody ever doubts it because of course, yeah, why wouldn't he? He's already on tape saying he grabs
Exactly. Oh my god. But see, even then, Billy Bush, he got fired from the show.
Right. Yeah, a much, shall we say, less important position.
Yeah, much less. And what was his fault? He was the guy standing around laughing.
He was a messenger. Yeah,
he was laughing while Trump was talking about this.
And here's one point that I want to make. We really should be pointing out. We really should be concentrating on I can't stand when like social movements like get sort of sidetracked onto these types of things.
Right.
And that's one of the problems with this gal. That's one of the problems with the Grace from is it
From
Babe?
Babe.net, yeah.
But .net. It sidetracks us. And so doggone it, why are we talking about this? But we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
And because we really should be talking about all the good that has come from this. And there's been a boatload. We already noted that. But man, we lost a national treasure, I think.
Right.
A lot of people have been making the case, and I totally agree, that the reason that women are being harmed by these situations is because they have always been taught, and we're both men, so we probably can't
We're
relate to
mansplaining,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, we're mansplaining right now because they've always been taught to be yes people. And I think it's true. Women generally want to please more than men. Historically, it's changing. And like this whole Babe Grace thing,
Right.
I mean, just the fact that both of us, we both disagree with Grace and what she did to
Aziz
Ansari. Yeah.
3 words for you. Treat yourself. Treat yourself 2011.
It's actually, though, I'm glad that it happened because it's instructive to women that they can learn from that. They can say no.
Totally.
You know, I haven't read that yet. Somebody needs to say it's a crappy thing that she did,
Right.
but women, learn from this. Yeah, you can. And you know what? I know from this movement that women will be able to later on say no. Just walk out, ladies.
And that's what drives me crazy, though, is we had referred to it earlier as psychobabble. I think that's appropriate.
Oh, gosh.
And I think this Babe.net article featuring Grace's account of supposed sexual assault by Aziz Ansari, I think that sets women back decades.
I totally agree.
Because what we're basically saying is, you have no agency. You have no ability to speak your mind.
And by the way, I want to interject. It sets the women back who believe it, who are the vast minority.
I hope.
No, I know it. I think women are way smarter than, I mean, most of them that I've actually heard. And you know, your wife and my wife.
Your wife, right.
And all the women I've talked to about it are just like, are you kidding me?
But I've had women, so on my personal Facebook page, they were like sharing articles with me because I posted about this Aziz Ansari thing. And basically what it came down to was, well, he was coercing her and he should have read her nonverbal cues. That is bullshit. So what he's guilty of is not being a mind reader.
Right. That's exactly right.
And if you look at her own account, if you look at Grace's account on Babe.net, she strips down naked. They both strip down naked. He's performing oral sex. I believe they call it cunnilingus.
They're getting scientific on us now.
Scientific. Yeah. And they're going to town.
Yeah.
And then he wants to go from that to sex. He would like to have intercourse with her.
Shocking.
And right? Then she says, at that point, I guess she says no. And that's when he said, oh, okay, cool. And they put their clothes back on. He's like, let's just watch Netflix. When she literally said no, he stopped. But up until that point, apparently, she was trying to communicate non-verbally.
It just, I've read a couple articles, and I'm going to try to get you the links, if I can, that try to diminish that idea that it is super destructive to his career. It could be. It probably won't be, if I had to guess, for him. I hope not. But it could be. But for a normal person, like I have had in my own life, people accuse me of things that I didn't do in an educational setting that I had to, luckily, had people fighting for me because they wanted to get back at another student, you know? And they were sort of, I was a byproduct of the whole thing. And so I'm super attuned to like people making false accusations against other people, and people treat it so lightly.
Right.
She and all these people defending her are treating it so lightly. You know what? This guy's got feelings.
He's got a career.
Women aren't the only ones that have feelings. Yeah. He's like, oh my Lord, you know, he's in a lot of pain because of that. Nobody wants to confront that.
And so I'm looking at this Time magazine article, about Aziz Ansari. And this psychiatrist from Beverly Hills named Carol Lieberman, she put it like this. Though they may have wanted to be in solidarity with other women, the stories of dates gone wrong or women scorned have detracted from women who have been raped or seriously sexually assaulted.
Couldn't agree more.
And so what happens is you have some of these, like this Grace from the Babe.net article, who have a bad date night. They have bad sex. And then later on regret it. And this is what's happened here. She regretted her encounter.
Yeah.
And then she tried to jump on the #MeToo movement, but it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So you have people who've been legitimately raped and sexually assaulted who are presenting their cases, and then people who are like, oh, I had sex with this guy and later on I regretted it. No, you're not part of the movement.
No, you're not, and you're diminishing it, and you're actually, I mean, sort of contributing to the whole Trumpian, like, I don't know, fake news and fakeness, and it just, I mean, it's got to be real.
Well, because there are genuinely horrible instances of sexual assaults where men have used the women basically as a means of, I guess, self-gratification, and then they kind of throw a bone to these chicks,
right,
to promote their careers or move them up or whatever.
Exactly.
And then this woman, this Grace, has
denigrated that idea, damaged that idea.
Yeah,
really. And man, can't remember the name of the gal on CNN who just she put it so perfectly. And people gotta watch that. It's just so well put. Everyone who goes too far, you stop this movement, which is a great movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you stop it. You denigrate it. You make all these hard-right people, all these men who use women, say, "See,
right?
It's not a real deal. It's the cry wolf thing." And
it is.
You know what? They got to realize that. We got to keep the movement going, but the women who cry wolf are stopping it.
Yeah, they're actually derailing a legitimate movement.
That's the word.
Because I think this case with Aziz Ansari and this gal who refers to herself as Grace, they're typical of the hookup culture. So, and I think that's where millennials in particular are confused, right? Because it's, well, I want to go on Tinder, I want to swipe right, or is it left? I don't even know. I'm married. I don't know. Anyway, they want to, let's say right. They want to swipe right, meet up with some guy, meet up with some chick. They want to hook up, right? And so they are not entering into genuine relationships. Mm-hmm. And instead they're so focused on, well, I want to use this other person to get off. I want to use this other person for my own sexual satisfaction. And so they get into a habit. I mean, the way you practice things, right?
Now, do you think it's the men or the women or both equally, or to what extent?
I think it's both.
Equally. It's interesting because that they are just as interested in sex as the guys. And in culture, we always said, no, the guys want it way more, but not necessarily.
And I think that's a product of like the 1960s sexual revolution where women can enjoy sex a la carte just as much as men. Well, here's what no one ever said. Here's the truth that no one ever said.
Consequences, yeah.
There's consequences. But the other thing is, guess what? Guys want sex. And when women are finally into like a la carte having sex, men are getting what they want.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think the Tinder culture has just so destroyed our concepts of relationships that we end up with this Aziz Ansari thing where they both think they're just here for a hookup. We need to empower people.
Yeah.
I think we really need to empower women. Right now, we could have a female president.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton could be president. But many people voted for Trump, including white women, who I'm sure a lot of them self-identify as a Christian.
Yep.
Voted for Trump.
A minority of people voted for Trump.
And then he didn't even win the popular vote. He just won by the Electoral College.
Yeah. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Hillary's possible complicity in Bill's escapades.
And that's true.
And that also plays into this. But again, just how do you compare?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because escapade-wise, they're equal. I mean, I don't see how you could say that even if she was covering up for Bill's deal, how do you say she was any worse than Trump?
I think there's a difference between that and Trump admitting on that bus with Billy Bush, like grabbing chicks by the
right,
kissing chicks, and they won't say anything because you're famous.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any disagreement over the abilities of Trump versus Hillary. I mean, but I don't think we need to excuse Hillary for any kind of like.
Well, because then she went on TV and she's like, "I believe my husband. You know, that chick's a liar."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. She covered for him.
Yeah, she definitely did, but it still doesn't excuse voting for Trump over her. It's not even close to me. It's a sandwich.
Totally.
It's a really nasty sandwich versus a turd, and that's where I put it. And I just don't get. I mean, it doesn't excuse anybody voting for Trump to me.
Not at all. No. So I think to wrap up this discussion, I think it's important to say like the hashtag #MeToo movement is really doing great work, and they've shed light on these people who are in positions of power, who are horrible, from Harvey Weinstein to Trump, Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Louis C.K., all these people who've been brought down.
And I love so many of them. Golly, Charlie Rose, C.K. But
man,
they f***ed up.
They did, and their careers are over.
Let's
that brings us to our last.
Let's talk about like what we love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, thank God for music. Thank God for fiction and for articles and for poetry. What are you into right now? And
I'm reading so many things. I read like 3 or 4 books at the same. Right now, I'm reading a book by someone named Dr. Brant Petrie, and he is biblical scholar from Louisiana, and he's a book called "The Jewish Roots of the Eucharist." In other words, for people who don't know what the Eucharist is, it's the biblical roots of communion. And so a lot of
going before Jesus' time and
right, so the Jews. So
and a lot of people, would they not say, well, that diminishes the Eucharist?
Right, so we would say that, well, Jesus was a Jew.
Right.
Right, and all the early Christians were Jews. And so when Jesus does the Last Supper and he says, this bread is my body, or this wine is my blood, he's not creating something new. He's not just creating something out of like thin air. He's going back to the Jewish traditions, and he's fulfilling them in his very person and instituting like a new banquet for us as Christians. That's what it is. And people don't realize, when did he do the Last Supper? It was Passover. There's no accidents in the Bible.
It's just that Passover is when the angel of death passed over all the houses in Egypt.
Yes.
That had lamb's blood on
their door. Yes. God had put out all these plagues on Egypt, and the last plague was the Passover plague, where the Jews would, with a hyssop branch, put the blood of a sacrificed lamb on their doorstep, and then they would have to go through some ritual and eat the flesh of the lamb.
See, I didn't realize they had to actually eat the lamb. That's crazy to me.
And that's the key part.
That is key, but that's been left out.
Yes, they eat the lamb. And then after they escaped from Egypt, they escaped slavery, Moses then instituted the Passover celebration, which they celebrated every year.
Yeah.
And the key part of that is that when they celebrate, they look at it as though they are participating in the first Passover. So they look at it as that Passover, it's like this weird bending of time and space. It's like hundreds of years after the Passover, they still do the celebration as though they are there.
Why?
It's this participation.
So they can
in the original
feel and
they can feel like they're part of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And so you fast forward to Jesus on Passover, he takes all that history, all that Jewish history at Passover, and he elevates it into himself.
Yeah.
He's that lamb
Yeah.
that's being sacrificed. Well, in Jewish culture, the only person who could pour out blood was the priest. They would sacrifice lambs in the temple, and they said that you could smell the temple for miles away because they were constantly slaughtering lambs and pouring their blood out.
Wow.
And so Jesus was presenting himself as both priest and lamb.
Yeah.
He was sacrificing himself as the lamb.
Yeah.
And of course, at Mass, we believe we're celebrating Passover, in a sense.
Every single Sunday.
So anyway, I've been reading that book.
Oh, I
It's
like
fascinating. But
What's the guy's name?
Brant Petrie.
Right on.
I'll post the link.
That is super. I am enthralled by the symbolism of it all.
It's crazy.
As an English major and an English teacher, it's really powerful.
And what are you listening to, or what are you reading?
I am listening to a guy that, and I revel in finding stuff. I revel in the underdog. I revel in the stuff that nobody can find that is awesome. And there's so much of it around. And we don't need to listen to pop culture. We don't need to listen to, but we do need to search constantly to find just these nuggets that are everywhere in our just rich culture. I love this dude. I'm a music lover, and his name is Avi, or his name isn't Avi Buffalo, but his band is Avi Buffalo, and I just love it. I think his band has been disbanded, but the music is so good. It's super lyrical, and it's folksy rock, which is kind of up my alley, and it's super adolescent lyrically. The melodies are great, and there's just, I'm all about unexpected transitions of chords and music, and just the guy rocks. Avi Buffalo, his band has been disbanded, and I can't wait to see him live. I'm going to be the oldest guy there in the show, but Avi Buffalo, great guy. And here's another musical thing, The Breeders, and I'm a huge Pixies fan. The Breeders are coming up with a new album, and I can't wait to hear it. I think they've got one song that was recently played in All Songs Considered, the great NPR program. But if you're a Pixies fan and you're a Kim Deal fan, you got to listen to the Kim Deal. What's the podcast that I just recently, you got me into?
Oh, WTF?
Yeah, WTF.
Oh, it's
What
so good.
the beep? And Mr. Moran or Marin
Mark Maron
just did a great interview of Kim Deal, the Pixies bassist. And the whole, if you remember Cannonball and the whole Pixies Breeders. Golly.
Oh, Breeders, okay. I've heard of them. Are they new, or what's...
No, they're old, and their songs are hit and miss, but they're coming out with the new album. It's going to be fun.
Oh, cool.
So.
All right, so thanks for listening. We're going to wrap it up. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for listening to our humble little podcast. Hopefully we didn't sound as nervous as we felt, though Joel and I took the edge off with some tasty brews. You could do us a huge, huge favor by subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That could be iTunes or Stitcher, wherever. And be sure to rate our show and leave a review. Your rating will help others find this show. And be sure to find us on Facebook at Conversation on Tap. Thank you so much for listening. Say bye to everyone, Joel.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see y'all next week.